The first inkling I had that today's material went well beyond our comfort zone is when the administrative assistant of Church of the Open Arms was preparing the bulletin and asked a question about Saul Alinsky's number 5 principle, which states that ridicule is humanity's most potent weapon for nonviolent community action. She'd never heard a church talk about ridicule in any way, except to say that it's something one should not be engaging in. The second inkling I had that today's material went beyond our comfort zone was when some in the book study last Wednesday would have liked to change the language within the principles. Opponent sounds much less harsh than enemy. To be honest, I was nervous to introduce this material in church, but I remembered that it usually takes us and myself getting outside of our comfort zones in order to learn and to grow. The good news is that Saul Alinsky is not Jesus, and to be a Christian, we do not need to add our intellectual assent to his principles. The catch, however, is that Jesus did engage in many other principles we heard earlier, and he definitely spoke about the fact that we have enemies in our lives. 95 years ago this week, the Tulsa race riot took place. This occurred amidst the culture of Jim Crow segregation laws, which legally discriminated against black folk. I'd never heard about this piece of history growing up, and for good reason. The wealthiest black community in the United States was located in our own backyard, Tulsa, Oklahoma. During the riot, it was burned to the ground. Over the course of 16 hours, more than 800 people were admitted to local white hospitals with injuries. The 2 black hospitals were burned down. The police arrested more than 6,000 black residents. An estimated 10,000 blacks were left homeless, and 35 city blocks were destroyed by fire. The official count of the dead was 39, but other estimates of black fatalities varied from 55 to 300 persons. The events of the massacre were long omitted from local and state histories, but the pain of scars from events even 95 years ago still affect us today. Racial tensions continue to grow in our country, and 34 years after the Tulsa race riot, one of the most famous nonviolent community actions took place during the 1956 Montgomery bus boycott, which was sparked by the arrest of Rosa Parks. The roots of the bus boycott, however, began years before. The Women's Political Council, a group of black professionals, had already turned their attention to Jim Crow practices on the Montgomery city buses. There were many organizations which discriminated against black folk, but city buses became the target at which all aimed their energy toward. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. In a meeting with the mayor 2 years before the boycott, the city's council members outlined the changes they sought for Montgomery's bus system. No one should have to stand over an empty seat. They should be allowed to sit in it no matter the color of their skin. Black individuals should not be made to pay at the front of the bus and then enter the bus from the rear. The bus should stop at every corner in the black residential neighborhoods, just as they did in white communities. But the meeting failed to produce any meaningful change. The Women's Political Council president wrote a letter to the mayor, telling him of plans for a citywide bus boycott. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. A year after that meeting with the mayor, a 15-year-old girl named Claudette Colvin was arrested for challenging segregation on a bus. 7 months after that, 18-year-old Mary Louise Smith was arrested for refusing to yield her seat to a white passenger. But neither arrest mobilized the black community like that of Rosa Parks. After Rosa Parks was arrested, a call went out for a one-day protest of the city buses. Enough was enough. Joanne Robertson, president of the council, prepared a series of leaflets at Alabama State College and organized groups to distribute them throughout the black community. Meanwhile, after securing bail for Parks, they began to call local black leaders, including Ralph Abernathy and Martin Luther King Jr. Black ministers and leaders met at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church and agreed to publicize the December 5th boycott. The planned protest received unexpected publicity in the weekend newspapers and in radio and television reports. That day, 90% of Montgomery's black citizens stayed off the buses. That evening at the mass meeting at Holt Street Baptist Church, the people voted to continue the boycott. A good tactic is one more people enjoy. King spoke to several thousand people at the meeting. He said, "I want it to be known that we're going to work with grim and bold determination to gain justice on the buses in this city. And we are not wrong. If we are wrong, the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong. If we are wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we are wrong, God Almighty is wrong." After unsuccessful talks with city commissioners and bus company officials, a formal list of demands was delivered. Courteous treatment by bus operators. First come, first served seating for all, with black seating from the rear and whites from the front, and black bus operators on predominantly black routes. The demands were not met. Montgomery's black residents stayed off the buses for 13 months. Keep the pressure on, never let up. After the city began to penalize black taxi drivers for aiding the boycotters, an intricate carpool system of about 300 cars was created. Whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. In early 1956, the homes of King and E.D. Nixon were bombed. King was able to calm the crowd that gathered at his home by declaring, "Be calm as I and my family are. We are not hurt, and remember that if anything happens to me, there will be others to take my place." City officials obtained injunctions against the boycott and indicted over 80 leaders under a 1921 law prohibiting conspiracies that interfered with lawful business. King was tried and convicted on the charge and ordered to pay $500 or serve 386 days in jail. Despite this resistance, the boycott continued. Keep the pressure on, never let up. National coverage of the boycott and King's trial resulted in support from people outside Montgomery. The major premise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. King took the advice of others on the application of nonviolent techniques of Gandhi. He said, "Christ showed us the way, and Gandhi in India showed it could work." On June 5th, 1956, 60 years ago today, the Federal District Court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. And in November, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed the ruling and struck down laws requiring segregated seating on public buses. Peace and justice does not come easily presented and wrapped in pretty paper with a bow, but can be gained through sweat, effort, nonviolent action, prayer, and ingenuity. The length of time the bus boycott had to last until unjust laws were overturned is disheartening. That the leaders' houses were bombed and that they were convicted of crimes and sentenced to jail time and fines is sickening. It may seem much easier to sit at home in front of the TV and pretend that the current state of affairs does not affect us. It may seem easier to not make the effort to vote, or empower friends and neighbors to vote, to leave it up to others to make decisions about which pieces of historic architecture deserve updates over our crumbling roads and bridges, or the way in which our children are to be educated, or which segments of society can do without health care or housing or hope. Jesus knew a little bit about confronting the powers which held your fate within their hands. He recommended using one's own experience of being belittled, insulted, or dispossessed, and these degrading experiences become one's expertise. He taught the people to use this expertise in such a way as to seize the initiative from the oppressor, who finds this new reaction of the oppressed totally outside his or her experience. Whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. This new reaction forces him or her to believe in your power. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have, and perhaps even to recognize your humanity. Returning to our scripture for this series, the debtor, and Jesus' example, turns the law against his creditor by obeying it and throwing in his undergarments as well. Make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. The ruthlessness of the creditor is used as the momentum by which to expose his greediness. Ridicule is humanity's most potent weapon for nonviolent community action. The action occurs quickly and in such a way that could only amuse the debtor's sympathizers. A good tactic is one your people enjoy. All other such creditors are now put on notice, and all other debtors armed with a new sense of possibilities. Jesus suggests amplifying an injustice in order to expose the fundamental wrongness of legalized oppression. If you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. Walter Wink, author of Jesus and Nonviolence, wished to add another rule by which to guide one's actions, that of the golden rule. Wink advised to never adopt a strategy that you would not want your opponents to use against you. The amount of injustice and the amount of sweat needed to make justice a reality is overwhelming at times, especially if, like me, you don't like to sweat. But what I uncovered in my reflections this week was the strides that have been made and why and how those strides have come to pass. I start with the personal because it's what I have the most insight into. This week I thought about how far the LGBT rights have made it. I listened to those 10 and 20 years older than myself talk about the changes that they've lived through in their lifetime in this short span. In the span of these 2 weeks, I will be officiating 3 same-gender marriages. That feels normal to me, and I'm glad that it does. There's not one person I can pinpoint to say thank you to for all of these changes, but I can recall the dozens and hundreds of friends and mentors who have taken steps and participated in nonviolent activities which have all added up to make a big difference. And I can know that I too participated, and seeing that my doing my part actually matters, and you doing your part matters too. This week I wondered how we might incorporate the principles for nonviolent community action into our daily lives. I think large-scale actions take leadership, creativity, and dedication. I am not a community organizer, but I have put the prayer out there that if I do my part by teaching Jesus' countercultural wisdom, then we will trust that God will call and empower those who have the gifts and skills to lead us in seeking justice for those who are oppressed. Jesus did not advocate and teach nonviolence merely as a technique for outwitting or ridiculing the enemy, but as a way to hold up an opportunity for your enemy to experience transformation, so that in the end we are all restored as members of the beloved community. And who is the enemy? Is it my boss? A family member? The government? Sometimes the enemy is even ourselves. Next week we will focus on the teaching that Jesus shared immediately after telling the oppressed to turn the other cheek, give over their cloak, and walk the second mile. He taught us to love our enemies and to pray for those who persecute us. And here we thought today's reading involved getting outside of our comfort zones to learn and to grow. May God add insight and grace to the ways in which Jesus